What if the loudest message you could ever send is absolute silence? Imagine this. You've given everything to someone who treated you as though you were nothing. You sacrificed your priorities, adjusted your life around theirs, and poured every ounce of care into the relationship. And yet they rejected you. They ignored your worth, dismissed your kindness, and left you feeling like a shadow. Now picture this. Instead of words, tears, or arguments, you choose silence. A silence so profound it begins to echo louder than anything you could have said. Does this idea intrigue you? Perhaps it even terrifies you. But here's the truth, your silence isn't just absence. It's a mirror, reflecting back to them the emptiness they created. They won't see it right away, but that silence will start to speak. It will seep into their world, haunt their moments, and force them to confront the truth they tried to ignore. This is not just about making someone miss you. This is about reclaiming your power. This is about using Stoicism, the ancient philosophy of resilience and self-mastery, to anchor yourself in strength while the silence works its magic. But be warned, the journey is not easy. It will test your patience and resolve. Are you ready to see what happens when silence becomes your loudest statement? Stay with me. As we unravel this story, you'll see the profound stages of what they feel when you go silent. The last stage. It's one you won't want to miss because it reveals the ultimate truth about their feelings and about your own growth. Let's dive into the first transformation your silence triggers. 1. The silent void. When you choose silence, you don't just leave a room, you leave a void, a hollow space that lingers in their mind. At first, they might not notice it. They'll keep scrolling through their phones, laughing with friends, and pretending everything is fine. But as the days stretch into nights and the noise of the world fades, they'll begin to feel it. That silence isn't just quiet, it's deafening. What happens when the presence they once dismissed is no longer there? They'll start to notice the absence in ways they didn't expect. Do you think they'll admit it right away? Likely not. Instead, they'll search for distractions, trying to escape the uncomfortable emptiness that your silence has created. But here's the catch. The more they run from it, the louder it becomes. Each missed notification, each moment of stillness, is a reminder of what they've lost. Silence is relentless. It doesn't shout or demand attention, it just exists, patiently waiting for acknowledgement. Have you ever tried to ignore an itch, only for it to grow more irritating the harder you resist? That's exactly what they're experiencing now. The more they try to suppress the void, the more it consumes them. And while they struggle in this silence, what about you? Are you tempted to break it? Do you catch yourself reaching for your phone, thinking maybe they've forgotten me? Maybe I should remind them I'm here. Stop. Remind yourself. Silence is your strength. This is not the time to fill the void for them. Let them sit in it. Let them feel the weight of what they dismissed. This stage is not just about their experience, it's also about your growth. Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control, ourselves. You've already made the powerful choice to step back. Now direct your energy inward. Who are you when you're not constantly giving to someone else? What dreams, ambitions, or joys have you been neglecting? This silence is not just theirs to feel, it's yours to reclaim. But here's a crucial question. Will they rise to face the emptiness, or will they crumble under its weight? Their response to the silent void will tell you everything you need to know. Are they the kind of person who reflects and grows, or are they someone who avoids and distracts? Either way, the silence is doing its work. And you're not just waiting, you're transforming. Each day, as you resist the urge to reach out, you grow stronger. Each moment you choose yourself over their attention, you reclaim a piece of your worth. The silent void is only the beginning. As the days turn into weeks, they'll find themselves grappling with an even deeper realization, one they can't escape. What is it? Stay with me, because this journey is just starting to unfold. 2. The power of realization. There's a moment that changes everything. At first, they might brush off your absence. They'll tell themselves that you'll come back, that this silence is temporary, and that you're just being dramatic. But as the hours turn into days and the days into weeks, something shifts. Slowly they start to feel it, a realization creeping into their mind like a shadow. You're gone. Not physically perhaps, but in every way that mattered, and this time it feels different. What do you think happens when someone realizes they've taken you for granted? They'll replay every conversation, every moment where you gave and gave, only to be met with indifference. They'll remember the times you tried to reason with them, only to be dismissed. At first, they won't admit it was their fault. That's human nature, isn't it? To push away the guilt, to find a reason to blame anyone but themselves. But silence has a way of stripping away all excuses. It forces them to look inward, and what they see there isn't always easy to face. Have you ever had a moment of clarity so stark it felt like a punch to the gut? That's what they're feeling now. In the absence of your presence, they're starting to realize the truth they avoided for so long. You were not someone they could replace. You weren't just there, you were there for them in ways no one else ever was. And now, that steady presence is gone, leaving behind nothing but silence. But here's where it gets tricky. This realization doesn't come all at once. It unfolds slowly, layer by layer. They'll start to notice the little things first. The good morning texts that don't come anymore. The way you used to anticipate their needs without them having to ask. The warmth of knowing someone was always there to listen, to care, to see them fully. And when they start to notice these things, it hits them. They didn't just lose you, they lost the version of themselves that existed when you were around. Do you think they'll reach out right away? They might send a quick text, something casual like, "Hey, just checking in." But that's not an invitation to resume what was broken. That's their way of testing the waters, of seeing if the door they slammed shut is still unlocked. And what should you do if that happens? Remember this. Your silence is still your strength. They're not ready yet, not really. A single text doesn't undo the damage or prove they've learned anything. Stay the course. This is where Stoicism comes in. What does Stoicism teach us about moments like this? It tells us to detach from what we can't control, their feelings, their actions, and focus on what we can. Our own growth, our own journey. Right now, their realization is not your responsibility. It's theirs to face, to wrestle with, and to learn from. Your only job is to hold steady, to resist the urge to ease their discomfort, and to trust that silence will reveal the truth in time. As they sit with this realization, they'll likely experience a mix of emotions: regret, guilt, maybe even anger. They'll tell themselves stories to try to soften the blow. I didn't really need them anyway. They'll come back when they're ready. It wasn't that big of a deal, but deep down they know. They know they've lost something they might never find again. And that knowledge is like a pebble in their shoe, small but impossible to ignore. And what about you? This is your moment to thrive, not just survive. Take this time to redirect all the energy you once poured into them and channel it back into yourself. What have you been putting off? What dreams have you sidelined in favor of someone who didn't see your worth? Use this silence as a canvas to paint the life you've always wanted. Build something so beautiful, so strong, that even you can't believe how far you've come. Now let me ask you something. Can you feel the power of this realization? Can you imagine how much stronger you'll be when you fully embrace this silence, not as a punishment for them, but as a gift to yourself? If this resonates with you, do me a favor, like this video and comment number 1 below if you're feeling this moment of clarity. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Together, we'll navigate this journey of resilience and strength through Stoicism. This realization is only the second stage. There's still so much more for them to feel and for you to grow into. Let's keep moving forward step by step as the silence continues to unfold its power. Are you ready to see what's next? Let's dive deeper. 3. Regret sinks in. Regret is a peculiar emotion, isn't it? It doesn't burst in suddenly. It creeps, inching its way into the corners of the mind until it can no longer be ignored. And in the wake of your silence, regret begins to take hold of them. This isn't just about missing you, it's deeper, more complex, and far heavier than that. Regret forces them to confront what they chose to overlook, to see the moments of disrespect, neglect, and dismissal for what they truly were. Choices they made over and over until they drove you away. Think about this for a moment. What does it take for someone to feel regret? It's not just the absence of a person, it's the recognition of the role they played in creating that absence. Every unkind word, every ignored effort, every careless action is now magnified in the silence. And the longer the silence lasts, the louder those memories become. Do you think they can escape it? Not for long. Regret is relentless. Now, picture them replaying your moments together. At first, they might focus on the good times, trying to comfort themselves with nostalgia. But nostalgia has a sharp edge. It doesn't just remind them of what they had, but of how they let it slip away. Every time they remember your kindness, it's paired with the sting of how they dismissed it. Every time they think of your patience, they're reminded of how they took it for granted. The memories they once cherished are now tinged with guilt. But here's where it gets even more profound. This regret isn't just about losing you, it's about losing themselves in the process. They start to realize that by pushing you away, they weren't just rejecting a person, they were rejecting the opportunity to be better. Because isn't that what you did for them? You brought out a version of them they didn't even know existed. And now, in your absence, that version feels impossibly out of reach. Regret also has a way of turning even the smallest moments into profound revelations. They'll remember the time you stayed up late to support them during a difficult moment, even when you were exhausted. They'll recall how you forgave them for things others wouldn't have. And then they'll think of the times they dismissed your needs, forgot your worth, or treated your love as though it was something guaranteed. Each memory is a weight pressing down on them, heavier than the last. What about you, though? Are you feeling the urge to step in and ease their regret? Perhaps you think, if I just explain my perspective, they'll finally understand. But here's the truth. They don't need your explanation. They need to sit with this regret. They need to feel its full weight, without you cushioning the blow. This is their moment to confront the reality of their choices. And it's not your job to make it easier for them. Stoicism reminds us of the power of self-mastery, of knowing when to act and when to hold back. This is one of those moments to hold back. Regret, painful as it may be, is a necessary teacher. It forces reflection, growth, and, for those strong enough to face it, transformation. If you intervene now, you rob them of that opportunity. And more importantly, you rob yourself of the chance to move forward unburdened by their journey. But here's something fascinating about regret. It doesn't just haunt them in the present. It stretches into their future. They'll carry this regret with them, perhaps forever, as a reminder of what they let slip away. Even if they find someone new, even if they seem to move on, that regret doesn't simply vanish. It lingers, a quiet echo in the back of their mind, reminding them of the person who saw them, supported them, and cared for them like no one else did. And yet, this is not about punishment. Stoicism teaches us not to seek revenge or harbor ill will. Instead, let their regret be their guide. It's a mirror reflecting their own actions and choices. Whether they learn from it or not is beyond your control. Your silence is not a weapon, it's a boundary. It says, I choose myself. And in doing so, you allow regret to do its work, not out of malice, but out of necessity. As regret takes hold of them, you may feel a mix of emotions yourself. Perhaps there's a sense of validation, knowing they finally see what they've lost. Or maybe there's lingering sadness for what could have been. Both feelings are valid, but don't let them pull you backward. Remember, this journey is as much about your growth as it is about their realization. Now ask yourself, what have you learned from this experience? How has their rejection and your silence transformed you? These are the questions that will guide you forward. And as you continue to grow, their regret will only deepen, forcing them to confront truths they might not yet be ready to face. But that's the beauty of silence. It works on its own timeline, revealing lessons and truths in its own way. Regret is a powerful force, but it's only the beginning. There's more to come as they try to navigate the weight of your absence. Are they ready to face it? And more importantly, are you ready to see what happens next? Stay with me. This journey is far from over. 4. The Mask of Indifference. At some point, they will try to hide it. The regret, the realization, the sting of your silence, it's too much to face head-on. So they do what people often do when confronted with emotions they're not ready to process. They put on a mask. This mask of indifference becomes their shield, their performance, their way of pretending your absence doesn't bother them. But here's the thing about masks, they always slip. On the surface, they may seem fine. They might post cheerful updates on social media, filled with laughter and smiles. They might surround themselves with people, staying busy to create the illusion that they've moved on. They might even act more confident, as if your silence hasn't left a void. But beneath all that posturing, something else is happening. What do you think they feel in those quiet moments when the distractions fade and the noise dies down? The truth, of course. And the truth is this: the mask is just that, a facade. It's not protection from their feelings. It's a desperate attempt to escape them. Every time they smile through the ache, laugh through the silence, or feign indifference, they're not fooling you. They're fooling themselves. Why do people wear this mask? Perhaps it's pride. They don't want to admit that your absence has affected them. Admitting that would mean acknowledging their role in creating this situation. Or maybe it's fear. If they show vulnerability, they risk losing the little control they feel they have left. Either way, the mask is less about you and more about their struggle to face their own emotions. But here's where it gets interesting. The mask isn't just a cover, it's also a test. They're watching, waiting, hoping you'll break first. If you reach out, even with the smallest gesture, it validates their performance. It says your indifference worked. I couldn't stand the silence. And in that moment, they regain the upper hand. Do you see the danger here? This isn't about them missing you or realizing your worth. It's about maintaining control. So what should you do? The answer is simple: nothing. Don't respond to the mask. Don't let it sway you or make you question your silence. Remember, the mask is their way of coping, not an indication of their true feelings. And just like any mask, it can only hold up for so long. Over time, the cracks will start to show. They'll slip, revealing glimpses of the emotions they're trying so hard to hide. Stoicism teaches us to remain unmoved by external appearances, to see beyond the surface and focus on what lies beneath. In this case, what lies beneath their indifference is discomfort, confusion, and a growing sense of loss. Your silence is forcing them to confront these feelings, even if they're not ready to admit it. And the more they try to resist, the more powerful your absence becomes. But let's turn the focus back to you for a moment. How does their mask affect you? Does it make you doubt your decision to remain silent? Does it stir up frustration or sadness, seeing them act as though you never mattered? If so, take a step back. Remind yourself, their mask is not your burden to carry. It's a reflection of their journey, not a commentary on your worth. Use this time to continue building yourself. The energy you once spent trying to make them see your value can now be directed towards something far more fulfilling: your own growth. What goals have you been putting off? What passions have you neglected? Every moment you resist the urge to react to their mask is a moment you reclaim for yourself. As their mask begins to falter, they'll be left with a choice: keep pretending or face the reality of their feelings. And that reality, as painful as it may be for them, is necessary. The more they try to suppress it, the stronger it will become. Eventually, the mask will become too heavy to bear, and they'll have to confront what lies beneath. The mask of indifference is a critical stage, not because of what it reveals about them, but because of what it teaches you. It reminds you that appearances are often deceiving, that silence is a more powerful communicator than words, and that your worth is not defined by someone else's ability or inability to show their feelings. So what happens next? When the mask slips and they're left with nothing but the raw truth of their emotions, will they rise to the occasion or will they crumble? The answer lies just beyond this stage, in the unfolding journey that your silence continues to shape. Stay with me. The next chapter is one you won't want to miss. 5. Attempts to replace you. When someone begins to feel the weight of your absence, they often seek the easiest way to numb the ache. For many, that means finding a replacement, a person, an activity, or even a lifestyle that temporarily fills the void you left. They think, If I just distract myself, this feeling will go away. But what they don't realize is that replacing someone as unique as you is not only impossible, it's a path that leads to deeper regret. At first glance, it might seem like they've moved on. Perhaps they're posting photos with someone new, laughing at parties, or diving into hobbies they never cared about before. But don't be fooled. What looks like progress is often a coping mechanism. They're not moving forward, they're running away. Away from the silence, from their regret, from the realization that losing you has left a hole they don't know how to fill. Let's take a moment to understand this. Why do people rush to replace someone they've lost? It's not out of joy or genuine connection. It's out of fear. They fear the silence will overwhelm them. They fear facing their own shortcomings. And most of all, they fear acknowledging that the person they lost, you, was irreplaceable. So instead of sitting with that discomfort, they seek the quickest way to cover it up. But here's the catch. A temporary distraction doesn't erase a permanent loss. Imagine this. They're with someone new, someone who doesn't know their story with you. They laugh, they smile, but deep down something feels off. They find themselves comparing this person to you. The way you listened, the way you supported them, the way you understood them like no one else could. It's not a fair comparison, but they can't help it. And slowly, they begin to realize that no replacement can replicate the connection they had with you. But what about you? Seeing them with someone else can sting, can it? It's natural to wonder, did I mean so little to them that they could replace me so easily? But here's the truth. This isn't about you. Their attempts to replace you are not a reflection of your value. They're a reflection of their inability to face their emotions. Remember, Stoicism teaches us to focus on what we can control. And what you can control is your response. Instead of letting their actions shake you, remind yourself of your worth. You are not replaceable. Their new connection or distraction serves one purpose: to mask their pain. But masking pain doesn't heal it. It's like putting a bandage on a deep wound without cleaning it first. Eventually, the wound festers and the pain resurfaces stronger than before. That's what's happening to them. Each new interaction, each moment spent with someone else, only delays the inevitable. The realization that they let go of something truly valuable. Here's a powerful thought. The harder they try to replace you, the more they prove your impact. If your absence didn't matter, they wouldn't feel the need to fill it. The more they try to convince themselves they're fine, the more obvious it becomes that they're not. Your silence has created a void that distractions can't fill, and no matter how hard they try, that truth will keep catching up to them. Now let me ask you, how does this knowledge feel? Does it give you clarity, peace, or maybe even strength? If it does, I want you to take a moment right now. Like this video and comment number 1 if you feel this resonates with you. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Together, we're diving deeper into this journey of self-worth and stoicism, uncovering truths that empower and liberate. But there's more to this story. Because when the distractions fail, when the replacements fall short, something profound begins to happen. They're left with no choice but to confront the reality of what they've lost. And that confrontation, it's the beginning of a shift they never saw coming. Stay with me as we explore the next stage of their journey. It's one you won't want to miss. 6. Their world falls apart. At first, they thought they could keep going. They believed that distractions, new connections, or even denial could shield them from the truth of your absence. But silence has a way of creeping into the cracks of their world, widening them until everything they've built starts to crumble. This is the stage where the mask of indifference fails, where the replacement distractions fade, and they're left to confront a reality they can no longer escape. Their world is falling apart without you. Why does this happen? It's simple. When you were in their life, you weren't just a presence, you were a foundation. You provided stability, understanding, and support, often in ways they didn't even realize. They took it for granted, mistaking your consistency for something ordinary, something replaceable. But now that you're gone, the imbalance becomes undeniable. It's as if they're trying to hold water in their hands, only to watch it slip through their fingers. Consider this. How often did you step in to make their life easier? Maybe you were the one who listened when no one else would, who reminded them of their strengths when they doubted themselves, or who helped them navigate the chaos of their own mind. Without you, those small yet profound acts of care are gone, and in their place is a void they don't know how to fill. At first, they might not connect their struggles to your absence, but over time, the pattern becomes clear. The areas of their life that once seemed steady, relationships, work, even their sense of self, begin to feel unsteady, hollow. Stoicism teaches us to look beyond the surface, to understand the deeper workings of human behavior. And here's the truth. When someone loses a stabilizing force in their life, it's not just about losing the person, it's about losing the balance that person brought. In your silence, they're beginning to feel the consequences of losing that balance. Their work might feel less fulfilling. Their friendships might seem shallow. Even their sense of purpose might waver. It's not that you were their only source of meaning, but your presence amplified the meaning they found in their life. Without you, everything feels a little dimmer, a little harder to hold on to. But this unraveling isn't just about external struggles, it's deeply internal. Have you ever noticed how chaos on the outside often mirrors chaos within? That's what they're experiencing now. Your absence has forced them to look inward, and what they find there isn't easy to face. The comfort of knowing you were always there to catch them is gone. And without that safety net, they're stumbling, unsure of how to move forward. Yet, as their world falls apart, something important begins to happen. They start to see the truth. They see the role they played in pushing you away. They see the ways they undervalued you, the moments they chose pride or indifference over connection. And perhaps most importantly, they see the difference between what their life was with you and what it is without you. This stage can be painful to witness from a distance. You might find yourself wondering, should I step in? Should I offer support? But remember, this is their journey, not yours. Your silence isn't meant to punish, it's meant to create space for reflection. Intervening now would only delay the process. Stoicism reminds us that growth often comes through discomfort. This unraveling is necessary for them to confront their actions and potentially to grow from them. And what about you? While their world is falling apart, yours is coming together. The silence that feels heavy to them is freeing for you. It's a chance to rebuild yourself, to focus on what brings you joy and fulfillment. Have you noticed how much lighter you feel now that you're no longer carrying the weight of their indifference? Use this time to strengthen your own foundation so that no matter what happens next, you remain steady. As their world continues to crumble, they'll face a choice. Will they take responsibility for their actions and seek to rebuild? Or will they sink further into denial and regret? Their response will reveal their true character, but it's no longer your burden to bear. You've done your part. You've shown your worth by walking away and choosing yourself. What they do with the lessons your silence teaches them is entirely up to them. And yet, this isn't the end of their journey. There's one more stage that awaits, a moment when they're left with nothing but the silence itself, forced to grapple with the full weight of what they've lost. Are they ready to face it? More importantly, are you ready to see what happens when the silence speaks louder than ever? Stay with me. The next stage will reveal everything. 7. Breaking down or breaking through. This is the moment everything comes to a head. After all the distractions, all the masks, all the futile attempts to replace you or fill the void, they are left with nothing but the truth. The silence has cornered them, stripped away their defenses, and now they stand at a crossroads. Will they break down under the weight of what they've lost, or will they break through, using this silence as a catalyst for growth? For some, this is the breaking point. The regret, the loneliness, and the realization of their mistakes become too much to bear. They spiral, clinging to denial or resentment to shield themselves from the truth. These are the ones who refuse to face their role in what happened, who would rather sink further into their pain than take responsibility. It's not that they don't care, it's that they lack the strength to confront their feelings head-on. They're trapped, replaying the past but unable to move forward. Imagine their inner dialogue at this stage. They think, how did I let this happen? Why didn't I see what I had when I had it? But instead of channeling these thoughts into action, they wallow, hoping the passage of time will ease their pain. For these individuals, the silence becomes a prison, locking them in regret and self-pity. And as much as you might wish they'd break free, Stoicism reminds us that their growth is not your responsibility. You've given them the space to reflect. Whether they use it wisely is entirely up to them. But not everyone breaks down. Some rise to meet the challenge. For these individuals, your silence becomes a wake-up call, forcing them to take a hard look at themselves. They start to ask deeper questions. Why did I push them away? What patterns in my behavior led to this? These questions aren't easy to answer, but the act of asking them is the first step toward growth. Instead of running from the discomfort, they lean into it, using the silence as a mirror to see their flaws and shortcomings clearly. Breaking through is not a smooth process. It's messy, raw, and often painful. But for those who choose this path, it's transformative. They begin to understand the impact of their actions, not just on you but on themselves. They see how their inability to appreciate your presence stemmed from deeper issues, perhaps fear of vulnerability, a lack of self-awareness, or unresolved insecurities. And with this understanding comes the potential for real change. But here's the truth. Even if they break through, it doesn't guarantee they'll return. Growth doesn't always lead back to the source of the pain. Sometimes breaking through means realizing they need to let go, not because they don't value you, but because they recognize they're not yet capable of being the person you deserve. This can be bittersweet to witness, but it's a testament to the power of your silence. It pushed them to confront their reality, even if that reality doesn't include a future together. Now let's bring the focus back to you. Watching someone reach this stage, whether they break down or break through, can stir up a lot of emotions. You might feel validation, knowing your silence had an impact. Or you might feel sadness, mourning the relationship that could have been. Both feelings are valid, but they don't define your journey. What defines your journey is the strength you've cultivated throughout this process. Stoicism teaches us to release attachment to outcomes we can't control. Whether they break down or break through is beyond your influence. What matters is how you've used this silence to grow, to reclaim your power, and to rebuild yourself. By now, you've likely realized something profound. This journey was never just about them, it was about you. Their reactions, their struggles, their realizations were all secondary to your transformation. And what a transformation it has been. You've gone from bending over backward to accommodate someone else's needs to standing firm in your own worth. You've learned the power of silence, not as a weapon, but as a boundary, a declaration of self-respect. You've seen how Stoicism can guide you through even the most difficult moments, reminding you to focus on what you can control and let go of what you cannot. So where does this leave you? Free. Free from the need for their validation. Free from the weight of their struggles. Free to move forward, whether they're part of your future or not. If they break down, you can walk away knowing you did everything you could to create space for reflection. If they break through, you can choose whether to open the door or keep moving forward on your own path. The silence has done its work, both for them and for you. It's revealed truths, tested boundaries, and forged strength. And now, as the silence begins to lift, you're left with something far more valuable than their attention. You're left with clarity, resilience, and the confidence to stand tall in your worth. This is not the end. It's the beginning of a new chapter, one where you carry the lessons of this journey forward. Whether they return or not, whether they grow or remain stagnant, you are no longer defined by their choices. You are defined by your own strength, your own growth, and your own unshakable sense of self. So take a deep breath, reflect on how far you've come, and step boldly into the future, knowing that the silence you once feared has become the foundation of your freedom. This is your moment, and it's just the start of the life you truly deserve. As the journey unfolds, You've seen how your silence has reshaped not only their perception of you, but also your understanding of yourself. You've witnessed the power of absence, how it turns reflection into a tool for truth, and how Stoicism guides you through the complexities of letting go. This is not the ending. It's the beginning of a new story where you stand firm in your worth, untethered by the need for validation from those who didn't see it before. But let's take one final look at the truth your silence reveals. Whether they break down or break through, your silence has taught them, and you, an invaluable lesson. For them, it's the realization of what they've lost and the weight of their choices. For you, it's the clarity that you've always deserved someone who recognizes your value without needing to lose you first. Imagine where you are now compared to where you began. No longer the person chasing someone else's approval, bending and breaking for their attention. Instead, you're someone who has reclaimed their power, who has chosen themselves over the fleeting validation of another. That choice alone is transformative. And while their journey through the stages of realization and regret may continue, yours has already moved forward into strength and independence. The silence has done its work, and now it's time for you to take the next steps. What will you build from here? How will you use the strength and resilience you've cultivated to create a life filled with fulfillment and purpose? This is your moment to redefine yourself not as someone waiting for another person to change, but as someone who has already embraced their own transformation. You've been through a journey of reflection, of holding space for silence, and of witnessing its profound effects. Now the question is, what's next? The answer is entirely yours. Whether they return with clarity or remain in their struggles, your path is your own to shape. Thank you for taking this journey with me, for embracing the lessons of Stoicism and silence, and for standing firm in your worth. If this message resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's keep spreading the power of self-respect, resilience, and clarity. Your silence has spoken louder than words ever could, and now it's time to let your life speak even louder. Here's to your strength, your growth, and the freedom you found in choosing yourself. The best is yet to come.